evening. Welcome to Progressive Soup. My name is David Stevenson. I'll be tonight's host along with Emily Volpentesta, my co-host. And with us we have well-acquainted member of our guest group, Lynn Tabersack, who will describe herself for the audience, and also new friend Bernice, new friend of Progressive Soup, Bernice. And we're going to talk about homelessness, and we might get into some other issues in Danbury, but I think that's a pretty good topic to spend the full half hour on. But go ahead.
It's a good topic because the taxpayers in the city of Danbury have just spent $10,000 on a study that's going to help us eliminate chronic homelessness in the city of Danbury. And that consultant's releasing her recommendations, her report, to the Danbury Housing Partnership on Thursday, September 18th at 2:30 at City Hall for anyone who's interested in going. There's a few problems, though. The consultant identified 18 chronically homeless people in the city of Danbury.
18?
18. Oh. And I have to say, if we had $10,000 and only 18 chronically homeless people, I think helping them would have been a better use of that money.
Yeah, I would think so.
if a city the size of Danbury, and Danbury is a great small city, but I think you probably have a better notion as far as how many chronically homeless people there really are in Danbury, because you see that at the shelter and at the soup kitchen.
Yes, I do. I think we need to talk about numbers. And most people know that every year HUD, Housing and Urban Development, makes you count all of the individuals in your community who have no permanent place to live, no place to stay. So that was done in January of 2014. Mm-hmm. On the 29th day of January, they counted 148 folks who had no place to stay. 102 of them were single adults, and they are for us what I'm calling our chronically homeless, hard-to-serve population. Why are they so hard to serve? We have lots of family housing in Danbury. Got Olive Mill Ridge, we have Fairfield Ridge, we have Putnam Drive family housing. You can't house single homeless adults in family housing. Now, how about if we have lots of senior housing?
Right, yeah.
What do you do when your 102 single homeless adults are too young, like they're only in their 50s or their 40s, sometimes even in their 30s. Mm-hmm. They're not eligible for our public housing, they're not eligible for our senior housing, and 18 is too low a number. So money not well spent trying to come up with a plan to end chronic homelessness for 18 people. You think there's more than 18, Bernice?
Oh, most definitely more than 18, Lynn.
Yeah. One of the temporary shelters in the city of Danbury is the overflow shelter at the First Congregational Church. So we keep records of how many guests stay for more than 30 days. You know, every time someone comes in and takes a bed, they're signing into our sign-up sheets. So if you added up all of the individuals who stayed more than 30 days at the overflow shelter and more than 30 days at the Jericho shelter on Maple Avenue, there were 55 different individuals who stayed more than 30 days after January 1st of 2014. Now, the shelter opened on November 15th, so you're not even counting 15 days in November and 30 days in December when they were probably also housed in
the colder
shelters.
Months where people are more in need of shelter.
More in need of shelters. So right now we're saying we have 148 people who have no permanent place to stay at night, who have no place to be during the day, and 102 of them are single homeless adults, and that's a population I would hope that the consultant's report will address.
Well, a lot of those people are working people, aren't they?
Lots of them have part-time jobs. You know, this summer we camped at the grounds of City Hall.
Right.
And one of the women campers got up. Where did she work? Taco Bell?
Yeah, Taco Bell
Taco
down
Bell.
on. Yep.
I'm trying to remember some of the other locations that people go off to, but they do. They go off to jobs. And I guess I'd ask, how many dead-end, low-paying jobs do you think it takes to have your own apartment in the city of Danbury?
3.
I'm going to say I'm going to guesstimate
Right.
at least 60 or 70 hours of work at minimum wage
Right.
to barely get even a studio apartment in Danbury is $800. So you figure from there about 35, maybe 40% of your before tax income is going to go toward just your housing, leaving enough money for food, and that's about it.
Yeah. The real problem is there's an acute shortage of affordable housing for people with, I'm going to say, very low incomes, 50% of your average median income. And I think in Danbury, you're talking about 62,000 is median income. So imagine somebody trying to live on 32. Well, the National Coalition for Low-Income Housing says that for every 100 households, that's 50% of median income, 13 households will be able to find housing. That's a terrible number. So it's that housing for people with very low income, housing for anybody who's on SSI. What is SSI income?
Social Security is not very much. It depends. It goes on each individual, Lynn. You know,
but it's not more than $730, $740.
It's very low.
Which won't buy you an apartment.
It won't pay the rent. It won't pay the utilities.
Even a studio apartment.
Yeah.
So this woman who worked at Taco Bell, who was camping on the front lawn of the town hall in Danbury, where does she go? Like, where do they bathe? Do they have facilities they could use? I mean, if she's going to work.
Yeah, no, that's really a big problem.
Right.
It's really a big problem. Dorothy Day offers showers.
Right.
2 days a week, Thursday evenings and Tuesday evenings. You can shower at the city shelter, but it's not convenient. You need to be there at 8:30 in the morning, and what if you have to be at work at 8?
I know from helping out at the Dorothy Day that it's very structured, and it really does. There's no flexibility to people who work different hours.
No.
Right.
No, we have a person who just got employment. He's going to be working from, I believe it's 8:30 at night till 2:30 in the morning, and he asked me to contact the city shelter to see if I could talk them into him sleeping, day sleeping, coming in at 2:30 in the morning and being able to sleep till noon. We need to set up arrangements like that if we want to keep people safe and want to have a place for them to sleep.
You have a lot of great volunteers that help out there, but could you find volunteers that'll be able to be? I know they have volunteers there that are overnight from about I'm going to say like 9 o'clock at night till about 6 in the morning. But how do you get volunteers to actually be there to protect people that are sleeping in the daytime?
Well, the city shelter is open during the daytime. The city shelter has two functions. It's a shelter at night. It's a day center during the day where people can go and get mail, have lunch, and you can do it if you have a state of Connecticut ID.
Okay.
Not everybody has that.
Right.
And I'm not talking about people who are here undocumented. I'm talking about homeless people who don't walk around with their birth certificate.
Right.
Who don't have any place to stay.
Right.
Who lost their driver's license because their wallet was stolen.
Right.
Because they were taking a shower and there was no place to put their, So we have a lot of people who don't have IDs, and getting an ID is next to impossible because the first thing they're going to ask you for is a certified copy of your birth certificate. Where were you born?
Right, yeah. Oh, Me?
Yeah.
Danbury,
All right,
Connecticut.
that'd be pretty easy.
Right,
Dave, where were
right.
you born?
Bridgeport.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that would be a haul for you.
Right.
But we had one young lady who has now been homeless for about 8 years, who was born in San Diego.
Oh.
And that was a real headache to try and get a birth certificate for her, but we finally did. So we have a big problem. It's not 18 chronically homeless people. It's more like 102, and that's not counting everybody, because there are lots of people who aren't answering questions, aren't included in these point-in-time counts.
Sure.
And
It's an uncomfortable group of questions that you're probably asked.
not uncomfortable. It's where did you stay last night? But there are people who are not being interviewed.
Oh, okay.
Who are just, we're not counting them.
Oh, okay.
And there are people actually living outdoors, and we're not counting them.
Right.
Because we only count the people who are in shelters.
Right.
So we have single homeless adults who have no place to live, who can't be housed in family housing. So we try to house them in the private rental market. And Dave, you're our professional here. What does a private landlord expect or want to see before he rents to an individual?
Income of some sort, enough
Okay.
income to allow a portion of that to cover the rent,
Okay.
leaving enough money to pay other bills, food and utilities and
What's the
transportation to and from work.
People aren't working, but what would you require? What would you ask for?
Well, amongst other things, a credit check.
All right. You want to talk about that, Bernice?
I would love to talk about that. Credit checks are not always something that can be done for certain people, or things happen that are beyond their means. In my case, a family member of mine ran my credit very sky high, and my credit is bad. Sky high, but I'm not going to pass a credit check because, unfortunately, my name was on those. Even though I didn't do them, and it's hard to prove. I've done all I can to try to prove this.
A lot of people try to help out a family member by co-signing, and
No co-signing.
No.
just taking
No,
your
Her identity.
And I've already been denied housing because of this, and I've gone to a fair hearing about it, and they don't want to hear it. All they want to see is my name clear, and right now my name is not clear. So therefore, I would have been in housing 3 months ago had this not happened to me, but because of this.
The other thing that we see coming up an awful lot on credit checks, I don't know of any homeless person who has good credit. Are you shocked? No? Okay. A $30,000 Danbury hospital bill.
Quite often, you're right on the money there, because quite often it's
That
hospital
doesn't help.
bills.
That doesn't help,
It's
Dave.
hospital bills which weigh people's credit down.
Yeah. And these are people we need to shelter. You know, these are people we need to shelter. The other silly thing
To keep them from getting sick again and costing more
Right,
money.
to get back on their feet.
The other thing that I hate that the landlords are requesting is they want to see prior successful rental history. All right, well, where do you get that from?
Right.
Dorothy Day?
Right.
The city shelter?
No,
The
it's true.
overflow? Jericho?
Yeah.
You know, you have no rental history, you have lousy credit.
Yeah.
How are we going to take care of these people?
Problem.
Well, I had hoped that this $10,000 consultant report would kind of point us in a direction of creating some very deeply affordable, subsidized housing for single homeless adults, because we can take care of families.
Because she only found that small a number you mentioned, was it 18?
Yeah, she's saying there's 18.
That's a bad start to what sounds like it's going to be a very underreporting report.
Well, the sad thing about the recommendation, she has 19 recommendations, and like most consultants, we're going to call them action steps. And they all have a time to be completed, and then there's an empty column right next to it, 2 empty columns, but the empty column that concerns me is the lead responsibility. All right? So there's a column called lead responsibility for 19 critical actions in order to help the homeless, and those columns are blank.
So these are supposedly people that have the ability within the community to lead the way on something of this nature? When you say lead responsibility, what do you mean?
That's what the consultant is saying. These are the 19 things you need to do to take care of the chronically homeless in your community.
It doesn't identify who can do
these are the deadlines when you'll be able to accomplish, do this in the 4th quarter of 2014.
Yeah.
Not a clue as to who is going to do it. Not a name is in that 3rd column.
So everybody that may be responsible becomes blameless or responsibleness.
Right. We do this.
Yeah, not me.
We do this. Who's going to do that?
Yeah.
Who's going to do that? So that is very, very discouraging. That's very discouraging because Danbury has already a 10-year plan to end homelessness. There was a mayor's task force that was formed in 2005, and that plan, 10-year plan, runs out in 2015, and we haven't solved the problem.
Right.
And now we have a new plan with an empty column on who is going to provide the housing, the supported services that people need in order to get them off the street. So
is there someone in the mayor's office that it makes sense to have as a lead person for any of those action items?
The mayor quite often uses a young fellow named, is it PJ or JP?
I think it's PJ. PJ, I'm pretty sure.
And have you spoken with PJ?
On the phone, yes.
And has he solved your problems?
I'm still sitting here, ain't I?
Is there
What's PJ's role?
Yeah,
he's on the mayor's staff.
Okay.
He's on the mayor's staff
with clearly defined items of agenda items that he's responsible for.
No, I think he's really a jack of all trades.
Oh, okay.
He should be on that column.
He should be on that column.
No, but I think spending $10,000, and there's one column empty, I think she didn't really do her job, I wouldn't think.
Well, if the job was to come up with a plan, it's a plan, but there's no one responsible for carrying it out.
Right, not a solution.
So that's a bit discouraging.
Well, a lot of folks that are, let's say, down on government's role in doing anything, say that it should be handled or could be handled better by nonprofit groups, like in the case of the church. Do they have enough ability to handle that kind of a problem?
No. You were talking about brick and mortar changes. We need to have deeply affordable housing for people who can't be housed in public housing or in the private rental market because they have poor credit, they have no rental history, and they have issues. They have mental health issues. They have substance abuse issues. If you listen to Danbury Hospital crying their eyes out about the overuse of the emergency room for people who are sobering, we have a sobering center there. Take that money and put it into housing with services, and you would better than break even. The hospital would save money. Very, very discouraging to see.
Well, a local group, Ability Beyond, used to be DATAR, used to be Ability Beyond Disability, became Ability Beyond. They find housing, they secure housing for people with mental challenges and physical challenges.
They are very good in providing group homes. We're not talking about people who
they
need
do apartments
group homes.
too. They do find apartments for people too.
Yeah. Well, we would have a harder time. We're talking about people with no credit.
Right.
We're talking about people with no rental history. Landlords are saying no. They're going to cherry pick. They're going to want. I think when Bernice was turned down, what one of the things they said was, we don't want to rent to somebody who in 2 months is going to stop paying. And that's very unfair. That's very unfair.
That's a pretty heavy presumption on somebody's part.
Yeah, it is. So it's a little discouraging to see us looking at another plan that really doesn't have enough oomph in it, that doesn't have enough commitment. But the interesting thing is that the consultant is reporting to the Danbury Housing Partnership, which has already been charged with the responsibility to create safe, decent housing for all Danbury residents. So we have an entity that can do that. Now, they have to take the plan and put some meat on the bones and say who's going to do what,
right,
and then lug it off to the city council for the city council to approve. And that's where I think we will have our biggest problems, getting community support to solve this problem. Because people say, I don't want to help the homeless, everybody should pull themselves up by their own bootstraps,
Right.
My parents did, and I did, and
right.
And that's kind of a bad attitude. And yet, do you want to turn the Danbury Public Library into a day center for homeless people?
Right.
Do you want to see all those concrete benches outside the library completely filled with homeless people? We need to find them housing.
Right, we have to.
And there are people like me who think that individuals have like a moral right to housing. Like we do in our country, say that kids have a right to an education.
Yeah.
And I'd hate to think that jails were more important for us to build than housing for people with very low incomes.
That's another story we could spend a lot of time on, certainly, because we have now corporate prisons that are that have a vested interest in upping their population because it means more money for them, rather than back in the day when we had federally run and state run and city run and county run prisons where there was no motivation for the people there to hold on to their charges for long periods of time because they weren't getting extra money. The more people they had there, like corporate prisons are. But fair warning to the audience that neither Lynn nor I are real good friends with Mayor Mark Boughton, but so
we're civil.
Take it as you will. But what part could Mayor Boughton do in terms of leading this movement to accomplish this task?
Well, first of all, the city council will do anything that he wants. Look at the majority that he has on that 21-member council. He can get anything he wants through the council, and he needs to use his leadership. One other thing I wanted to mention has nothing to do with the politics, more to do with our housing market. They say that Danbury has the highest rental burden of any place in Connecticut.
As a portion of income, or just in straight dollars? Straight dollars. Yeah, I can say certainly that you can't find a studio apartment in the area for less than $800 a month, and that's not including utilities. You really can't find a 2-bedroom apartment if you had two adults that wanted to share an apartment, like a lot of young kids that are working for minimum wage do, for less than $1,200 a month. And it is a very expensive housing market when you consider minimum wage. Hopefully that'll change as our minimum wage goes up and starts to catch up to where it was 20, 30 years ago on an adjusted basis for costs of things. But
I'd like to see us get creative. I'd like to see Habitat for Humanity maybe. They did some wonderful multifamily on the Hospital Avenue. I don't know if you've driven by it.
Yep.
And when I go down Baumforth Avenue, right where it intersects with Osborne Street, there are two properties there. Dave, you're shaking your head.
Oh, the big purple Victorian, is that one?
No, that's a good one, the other side of the street.
Okay, yeah.
There are two very large houses in complete disrepair and boarded up in our center city. That would be like an ideal location for housing for some of these chronically homeless
that our city probably owns due to negligent back taxes, probably owns those properties.
Yeah.
So they probably could take them and find a way to create a situation where you'd have a series of small studio apartments within a larger building that could handle a lot of, at least make a dent in the problem.
Yeah. So let's do it,
So what could people in the community do? Because
I'd love to have people pay attention. I'd like to see a lot of folks coming to the Danbury Housing Partnership meeting on Thursday, September 18th at 2:30. You can hear the consultant's recommendations. You can raise your hand and ask questions. You can sit there and nod your head. Mm-hmm. Obviously, there'll be newspaper coverage of this new endeavor, and there'll be a lot of arguing. I'm going to be there arguing. I'm going to say, where in the hell did you come up with this number of 18 chronically homeless people? You are really undercounting in an awful way.
A lot of, and Bernice and I discussed this briefly off camera before we came in, that you're driving around and you're looking at people, and it's very hard to see who's homeless and who's not, because homeless people don't fit that criteria. Sometimes they take care of themselves. They're doing everything they possibly can to look as good as they can, because they have a positive attitude, and they're looking for an opportunity to go out and get employment and keep employment and have a place to come home to. So there's a lot of folks out there that you might be very surprised that are amongst the homeless.
So I believe there'll be newspaper coverage of the plan. I believe that the Danbury Housing Authority will be sending recommendations to the City Council, and that's another opportunity for people who are Danbury residents, not Bethel residents, that they can go and speak in favor of it, or talk about maybe the shortcomings that are still there.
And it really wouldn't take a lot.
It wouldn't take a lot, and it is a civic responsibility. When I originally went to the Danbury Housing Partnership, I'm going to say 5 years ago, they said, Lynn, you should go talk to the churches. And I said,
we know they're all doing their part. They're doing a lot of things.
Their part.
And with that, we're going to have to end the show. Thank you for watching Progressive Soup. David Stevenson, Emily Volvin-Testa, co-host, Lynn Tabersack, and our new friend Bernice. And Lynn's been here on the show a few times, here and then over the 4 years. But thanks for joining us.